got to find some power, and we say, hey, lightning. Okay, so our model has the stuff in the oceans that we need, and it has lightning strikes occurring all over the place, and we got about 1 billion years we're thinking that the Earth needed to get these ingredients in place. And now we've got, another 1 billion years or so. I forget how old the Earth is, but we got lots of time. We got lightning strikes. Now we can hypothesize that lightning will strike. We'll get those initial chemical reactions, and at one point, and this is again where people need to listen to this with some real skepticism. You don't just need the ingredients, the lightning strikes, the proper atmosphere structure of the planet. You got to hit that lottery. You got to get the lightning strike and get the either a dividing cell or molecule, replicating cell or molecule. You got to get something going, and then that has to happen in the right circumstances for it to then allow the effects of evolution to start clicking.
Well, we could speculate that if you had 1 billion years of life and you bought a lottery ticket every day, that you'd probably win the lottery, 800 times? Something like that. So whatever, a lot of times. So obviously time isn't a factor for these improbable events, and seems very clear that it is improbable. There's only one form of life on Earth. Life isn't just popping up all over the place. So science isn't saying it's easy. Science isn't saying, oh yeah, it happens all the time. It's just, snap your fingers, pop, there's a reproducing organism. No, it doesn't. It does take a special circumstance, and yeah, I think the evidence is pretty clear about that. We don't see a bunch of things living on other planets. It could be incredibly rare. We just have no idea. Science isn't making any judgment on that question. It really isn't. Not real science. And people speculate, but there's no real science. There's no way to figure out the equation. There's no way to know how improbable it was. But the theoretical possibility is certainly logically reasonable, rational. No, it doesn't break any rational rule.
And then, of course, you can't have any early extinction events because you got to keep going. You got to get past what are these building blocks of life into the dividing cells, into the groupings of cells, into the simplest life forms, into more complicated life forms, eventually into all the life that we see now or know exists, has existed at any time.
Well, you certainly could have early extinction events. There's no rule against that. I mean, life might have tried and failed a few hundred times. Who the hell knows? A few thousand times, a few million times. Who knows? Regardless, we know we know we can trace ourselves back, and that we aren't descendants of Cain's invisible wife. We know that. Okay, we know where we came from. We can see it in our own biology. We can see it in our genetics, and that's really the key thing we're talking about here. We're talking about the first strand of DNA, and once you have that DNA, once you have that reproducing blueprint, all things are possible in terms of its, it has this, not infinite, but it has an expansive realm of possibility in terms of how it will develop.
Well, there's abiogenesis, and if that's the best they got to get, best science has to offer right now, that is not a persuasive enough argument for someone like me to go, yeah, you're probably right. Probably no creator whatsoever. That's probably the way it went right there. That makes sense. Nah, bah. And I'll tell you why.
Well, we already know why. It's because you were a bigot. You have a perception, an ego. I don't even know what it is. You have a belief that religion, belief in a creator, that form of insanity is somehow a necessity to human civilization, and so you have contrived this reason to reject science, to compel people to believe in the fairy god, because you think somehow they're going to be better off for it. And we can sort of see it in your whole patronizing approach to conversation. You are constantly manipulating your language as if you are talking to kindergartners. You know, and so we can see your contempt for the human race. We can see your contempt for human, beings. And basically, like I said, I think you're basically just a liar. You actually do not believe in God, and like I said, you just think that religion is a necessity, that people need to believe in it, and that's why you're a bigot against this science.
When it comes to entropy and these localized exceptions to that second law, they're all temporary. They all require the application of energy, and then any case that anyone can cite for me is going to fit into one of two categories. It's either going to be an object of unknown origin, and I don't mean you know what it makes up. I'm saying the typical examples I'm given are snowflakes or crystals, things that form in an orderly fashion, increasing in structure and complexity, or decreasing in entropy, all by themselves, magically delicious. Well, that's begging the question. Those things are happening in strict adherence, in complete accordance with these physical, natural laws that we've discovered, conceptualized and described. We didn't make them. We don't know where they came from. They're not actually matter or energy, by the way, folks. But they're all happening in accordance with these things, and we don't know their origin. We don't know why the physical laws apply. We simply have seen and been able to demonstrate scientifically that they do apply.
The fact that we don't know the properties, that are attached, the properties of behavior that are attached to matter, which we don't know where its origins are. There's either two choices, I suppose. That matter is somehow a phenomenon of the space-time continuum, that it does generate through some kind of process, or that it just always existed, forever and ever. I don't have the answer to that question. I mean, it seems probable that the universe expands and contracts, it oscillates. That's a concept in the universe we can see. We understand oscillating systems. But we don't have those answers. That's right. But we don't have an answer to Cain's wife. We don't have an answer to God's father. This really, I might as well get to the point. I mean, since you're just going to go on nonsense, you're arguing against a theory on this little thin line of bullshit, mischaracterization of science. Where science doesn't even say what you're saying it's saying. I mean, life is an exception, obviously. Okay? There's no point in talking about entropy or any of this other bullshit, because life is an exception. Where else? There's no other system like life. Where else is there a biosphere? There isn't one. This is it. So it is an exception. Yes, there we go. But anyway, your whole philosophy is based on the presumption of a God that was invented by ignoramuses. I mean, people didn't know what thunder was, didn't know what lightning was, didn't know what a cloud was, didn't know what a star was, didn't know what an earthquake was, didn't know shit about anything. And so that was their presumption, a God. And so they had 4 million of them, bear God, sky God, poop God, all kinds of gods. And so you've accepted that their ignorant conclusion is the obvious conclusion. Why? I don't know. I don't think without that ignorant presumption, a person who would be literate in the sciences without any knowledge of God history would draw that conclusion, because it seems quite obvious that our creation is sloppy. It is not intelligent. Life is sloppy. It is messy. It is ugly. And like I said, your infinite God, your God that poofed out of nowhere, always existing, these are still, you got the same problem. How are you going to answer those questions? Is it an infinite God, or did he poof one day? And if he poofed one day, what did he do the whole time he was waiting before he decided 6,000 years ago to poof an Earth? I mean, it's stupid. It's just nonsense for you to be arguing little minutia details in science when you can't answer anything about this stupid imaginary fairy tale. God.
That falls in the example of known origin has been done by us, humans. The application of intellect. And I don't know if other creatures have, but for us, the human intellect is able to perceive matter, It's able to manipulate matter. We're able to apply energy to it, and we can cause temporary and local decreases in entropy. Well, now let's bring in Occam's razor to those facts. Occam's razor, to the best of my understanding, said...
So that was a good example of your false and contrived humility. I mean, I'm sure you played this Occam's razor fucking game 400,000 times, and yet you pretend that it's just, oh yes, this is just a vague idea I heard sometime once, while I was, in a restroom at McDonald's. Get real, butthole. Don't be so transparent. If you're going to be a bullshitter, if you're going to be a used car salesman, we'll come up with a little bit better disguise for it than that. You just gave yourself away. You're all about a manipulation. You're all about a deception.